start with a hard one that has lots of Hebrew that nobody can join in with. Page 128. My friend, a rabbi named Sim Glazer, wrote this melody. It's really nice. You'll recognize it. Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka. We'll repeat that. Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka. Hinehi yoredet hakdosha. Hinehi yoredet habrucha. Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka. Hinehi yoredet hakdosha. Hinehi yoredet habrucha. Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka bo v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka.
Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you all. Good Shabbos. What a beautiful week we've had. We even had some rain. Was it Tuesday, Monday? We had some rain earlier this week. Hard to believe. But I hope everyone is doing well. It's always great to see you. It's especially great to see you on Shabbat. We have a special Shabbat tonight. Our guest speaker is our Napa Police Department Chief, Jennifer Gonzales, and I'll be introducing Chief Gonzales a little bit later in the service. But I would like to start by inviting a city council person and all-around amazing person, Beth Painter, to come up with Carolyn to light our Shabbat candles tonight. And you can follow along on page 120 in your prayer books.
It should be on your card, all-around amazing person.
So light first. Lighter, much easier.
Yeah, it's easier.
Much easier with a lighter. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you. And we are going to continue on page 142 with the singing of Shalom Alechem.
Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mile Shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem LeShalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn to page 146 now for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. And if you are able, please rise.
Lai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai.
Please join me at the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And join me as well on page 151 at the top. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lektecha v'derech, uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam la'ot ha'yadecha, v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha, u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uv'isharecha, l'ma'an tiskaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, Vitem Kiroshim Lelohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher Hotzeti Etchem, Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lachem Lelohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. And we continue on page 158 with the singing of Micha Mocha. Please join me at the top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Askivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Aminenu shomreinu b'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Askivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Hamidenu shomreinu b'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful
Please take a moment now for your own silent thoughts and prayers.
Those whose deeds exceed their learning is like a tree whose branches are few, but whose roots are many, that even when the winds come and blow against it, they cannot move it from its place. Ava kol shema asav merubin mechokmato le'emar hu domeh le'ilan she'anafav uatin v'shorashav merubin kol haruchot ba'ot v'noshvot bo ein mezizin oto mimkomo. Tree, your roots are many, though your branches few if any. Tree, even if the wind blows, you will not fall. Tree, your roots are many, though your branches few if any. Tree, even if the wind blows, you will not fall. Ava kol shema sav merubin mechokmato le'emar hu domeh le'ilan she'anafav uatin v'shorashav merubin.
At this point in our service, we pause to think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat. Healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our community, or those known and loved by those in our congregation: Lynn Feingold, Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camisia, Joshua Hyman, Diane Butler, Jesse Friedman, Beverly Ogner, Ed Eston, Marjorie Gilberg, Michael Blend, Jim Mates, and Scott Cohen. And if anyone has a name that they'd like to add to our list, I invite you to please do so. The Misha Barak prayer is on page 511.
Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu kor habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We continue with the Aleinu on page 586. If you are able, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchelkenu kahem, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני
Please be seated. I have the honor now of inviting up our board president, Roberta Solomon, to share some important announcements with all of us tonight. I think this is on.
Okay.
I hope so.
Is it on?
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So let's start with the announcements. Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. in person with Rabbi Goldstein for exploration of the Scroll of Lamentations, an ancient book attributed to the prophet Jeremiah, read to commemorate Tisha B'Av. And then Sunday afternoon from 4 to 8, please come to L'Chaim. Promises to be a wonderful time. Jewish food, wine, and beer festival happening at CIA Copia. There'll be entertainment of all kinds, including features of CBS community members. This is a Sorry, I'm reading it right off the thing and it's not making total sense to me. Anyway, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on there. You can find details and tickets on Eventbrite. I'm really looking forward to that. On Saturday, August 13th at 10:30 a.m., we are honored to celebrate Jonah Slater Lewis's bar mitzvah, both online and in person. And then on Shabbat, August 19th, please join us for a pre-service slice of pizza at 5:30 p.m. Make sure to RSVP online, and then we'll have services afterwards at 6 p.m., where we'll have Elenia Wilmert speaking on her experience this summer with Hands for Peace, and the oneg will be sponsored by the Cohen-Wilmert family. August 21st will be the first day of religious school. If you have not already registered for school or have questions, please contact Leah. August 26th, the Paskans and Fram Friends will be honoring CBS past president Phil Fram, who will be visiting for his birthday with a special oneg. We'd like to give warm wishes to this week's birthdays and anniversaries. Happy birthday to Michael Blend, Sue Barish, Jonah Levinson, Ruth Amar, Fred Goldman, Naomi Petrick, and Lila Aronson. And happy anniversary to Julie and Scott Garion, Gordon and Karen Lustig, Zoe and Richard Stein, Lenore Fish and Dakota Fry, Shireen and Charles Lucas, Anna and Shaheen Shahibi, who are new members with us, Sharon and Bert Goldman, and Stephen and Mariel Brower. And that's it for this evening, and thank you all, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Thanks, Roberta. As we near the end of our service, we think of those who are no longer with us, those who have died both recently and in seasons past. We honor the memories of those who have died during the past 12 months. Arnold Trombler, Erica Cornelison, Gladys Shubin, Richard Magano, Clark Smith, Stephanie Rab Axner, David Ernesto Kaplan, Pat Pate, Annette Goldberg, Maggie Sherman, Sandra Banco Fichtenberg, Nicholas Huff, George Montano, Dean Wilson, Norman Charney, David Alpert, Renee Munoz, Michael Kasson, and Paul Dworsky. We also honor and remember the art sites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Adele Boots Brownstein, Sandra Stoltz, David Pinney, Nate Coyne, Paul Decker, Ann Herman, Gussie Bickoff, Josephine Novus, Harry Rose, Michael Perlman, Abraham Spitz, Fritzie Schechter, Julius Gorin, Daniel Court, Estelle Mautner, and Joseph Shansky. And if anyone has a name they wish to add, please do so. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah be'alma divra cheroteh v'yamlik malkuteh b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach v'almayamaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say, amen. Please be seated. We have a final song now before I introduce our guest speaker, and then we'll do the Kiddush and Motzi at the very end. But Gordon, what would you like to close services with tonight?
Boy,
take requests? We'll do something simple that everybody knows. We'll just end with a Hine Matov. This is how good it is for us to all be together. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
Thank you, Gordon. So I think, as many of us know, there's a Torah portion connected to every Shabbat during the year. And the Torah portion, the reading from the Hebrew Bible that is connected to this particular Shabbat, is the very first one from the book of Deuteronomy. It's called Devarim, and it represents the very beginning of the final book of the 5 books of Moses. And in many ways, it is also the farewell speech of Moses to his people after 40 years of wandering through the desert before he dies. And what he tries to do in his farewell speech is to offer the people of Israel, before they enter into the promised land, before they have to do battle with some of the other indigenous peoples who are there, he tries to offer them comfort. He tries to offer them support and inspiration. He tries to convey to them a sense of safety and security. He tries to tell the people of Israel that even though he may not be around much longer, someone is going to have their back. Now, I know for those of us in Napa, we know that during this rising time of anti-Semitism, the Napa Police Department has had our back. And we are so delighted to have Napa PD Chief Jennifer Gonzales with us here tonight to talk a little bit about what has been going on in this community, around the country, to take some questions from us. I've known Jennifer for almost 5 years now, I think. When I first moved here from Chicago, you had just moved here from Chico, I believe. And Jennifer started as a captain and then relatively recently became chief. And she has proven herself to be a very important leader, not just in the law enforcement community, but here in Napa in general. Jennifer is a strategic thinker. She is dedicated. She's committed. She is well respected by the team. And I'm just so delighted that you offered a few months ago to talk to our community whenever we wanted to. And so a few months ago, I took you up on that offer. So I'm glad that you're here with us tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Chief Gonzales up to the front. And if you have questions, please save them, because we'll save some time at the end for your questions.
That's a big wind-up.
Yeah. And you should be good with that.
Yes, thank you. So I've never worn a head mic before. I feel like a professional dancer here. I should get up and do some moves. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you for having me again. It has been a little while. I'm very appreciative of your time and your invite into your home, and you let me come to you. So thank you for that. I think it's been perhaps far too long for getting to see some of you, because I see you at events or special occasions. Others of you, we've only met maybe last time just in saying hello and greetings, but even then you had a mask on. And so I didn't get to see your beautiful smiles. So thank you again for letting me come to your place and present to you. Unfortunately, the last time we spoke, it was because someone decided to instill fear in our community and shared pamphlets that were inappropriate in the minds of many. In fact, I would say the majority of the minds, but constitutionally protected. And so the police department and your police officers swear to uphold the Constitution of California and the Constitution of the United States, but we also swear to protect you. And so part of our charge with that is to find a way to create peace in our community, to create safety, so that you know that you are safe and that if you see something, you have someone to call to allow us the opportunity to intervene and to investigate. So we were, invited here last time to talk specifically about that incident. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring charges to somebody. We weren't able to go down a criminal path to hold folks accountable because of the constitutionally protected speech. One that we all take liberty of enjoying said speech. But it's disheartening when somebody uses that and finds loopholes to elicit fear in our community and create a sense of unnervingness that folks aren't welcomed or aren't wanted because of a membership or a belief or looking or feeling or acting differently than someone else. And I find that disheartening. I have been in law enforcement since I was 18. This is what I've known my entire adulthood. And my charge, my desire to get into law enforcement started when I was much younger in high school. And there was a chief at the time who didn't know me from anybody, but had chosen to participate in the Girl Scouts. And they had a walk a mile in my shoe kind of program where leaders in a variety of fields would invite children, young Girl Scouts, to come and see what their careers look like. And many of you have probably participated in something similar where you've guided a youth member, so there's a few nods, gave them insight into your chosen professions. And this one particular police chief invited me to the police department. I wasn't old enough to go on a ride along. I was just a young kid. And she said, our job is to protect people, sometimes from themselves, sometimes from other community members, but our job is to get out there and be proactive in our community. I took that to heart. I didn't know what it really meant until I got into the job, but I did take it to heart because really she was reassuring the things that my family had already taught me, which was we take care of each other and we do what we can, what is right when it is, I just want to be able to see you, what is right when no one is looking, and when someone needs help, you step up. And that's what my family has always taught us. And so when I look at someone, as individuals in our community, we deserve to be safe. We deserve to be part of this community regardless of languages we speak, how we think, how we look. It doesn't matter. If you have 3 eyes and a horn, I welcome you into my world because that's how I was raised. Unfortunately, some folks aren't raised with the same mindset. They are raised to find ways to do evil and do harm, and some enjoy that, which I find to be sick. But they too are protected under our Constitution and under our laws. So I'm sorry that I can't report some glorious arrest and some prosecution, and that some of you are not sitting on a jury helping us hold folks accountable. But unfortunately, we want to remain in very true Napa form to support each other, and that all that is unique to Napa, as our board says on our city council, in that we want to have a safe, peaceful community and that we are all comfortable engaging in. To whatever extent you appreciate your community and you want to be engaged, we welcome you. We welcome you at community functions. We welcome you at police functions. My house is your house, so please, once we get out of this COVID world, please come on a ride along once we get that program up and running again. If you or a family member would be interested in law enforcement and you want to know more about it, I see a young man in the crowd here. If you have any interest in the profession, whether it's through a voluntary base or employment base, by all means, give us a call. Rabbi has my phone number. He has my cell number. He knows how to get a hold of us. We are happy if there's a incident in the nation that you just flat out don't understand why the officers did X, by all means call. Because I would rather take a moment and give you information about our world. It's a foreign language, and for some, and so I would much rather have an opportunity to explain why than to leave you puzzled with confusion and frustration, because no one should live in that way. We were talking earlier about my lack of vocabulary in Hebrew. I know the word cuckoo because of my younger sister. When she was almost up to the age of 2, and I don't even know if it's right, I was listening to a 2-year-old, but she wasn't speaking much. She didn't speak a lot. She was quite reserved to the point where the physicians were kind of starting to get worried as she got to her 2nd birthday. And then they discovered the issue. Her parents spoke English to her grandparents spoke Spanish to her, and her babysitter spoke Hebrew, and she was just taking it all in and not speaking anything back. The only word I got out of her was cuckoo, which to her, according to her, was ponytail, and she wanted her hair in a ponytail. So she'd run around with a rubber band chasing me down saying, cuckoo, cuckoo, and I go, you're cuckoo, get away from me. We're 13 years apart, so I wasn't supposed to enjoy her time at that time. Now you can't shut her up. She's a deputy district attorney in San Francisco, prosecuting some felony domestic violence cases, and you can't tell that one no. So I'm very proud of her. But yes, so cuckoo, I was getting quizzed in the back. Cuckoo was the only word I knew. So my best friend is Jewish. She tries to teach me regularly, and my comprehension, I think my sponge is full sometimes. So the other things that are going on in Napa, we have so many exciting things. We are in the process of hiring and expanding our police department leadership. When I first took the helm, almost exactly a year ago this weekend, we were faced with some staffing crisis. We had just gone through COVID as a community, and we had some frozen positions. We are now in the place where we can hire those positions back. We have brought on 1 new captain, 2 new lieutenants, and Monday I start a new records manager who will be in charge of the records division, as well as the property section, which is where we place our evidence for prosecution or to return to family members and that type of thing. So Joni is our newest member. She will be joining us on Monday. We have also just recently hired 2 new call takers, which are our 911 dispatchers. They start at a call taker point where they start taking phone calls, and then they move on to dispatching. We provide services, dispatch services, for the City of Napa Police and Fire Departments, the Sheriff's Department for the law enforcement, and then AmCan Police Department, Yountville Police Department, as well as the fire departments in those cities, or in American Canyon, and then also AMR, so medical. So if you call 911 and you are within the city jurisdiction, whether on your cell phone or a landline, you would get one of our dispatchers. They would then route you to take your information and route the appropriate service. So whether it's police and fire, police or fire, fire or medics, they would get you the help. So we just brought on 2 new call takers. Like everyone in all of their careers, they are new and starting out from a different profession. So they will be learning our world. So if you do call, have just an ounce of patience. They're new, and they're trying very hard, and they're excited to join our teams. We will take call takers, and they come from all sorts of different prior backgrounds. One of them used to be in sales, and she sold high-end knives. Another one is prior working for a custodial facility, and so she worked in the administration department, so she understands community service and questions and people calling with a variety of things. So she will probably adapt to the law enforcement side of it a little faster, only because she's got some of that experience. But they both are hard chargers, so we're excited to have them join our team. And part of our growth, we are still down 11 officers and 4 call takers. We have a little room to grow there. And as you can imagine, I'm sure through Hollywood and the news, you can tell that we're probably not the favorite career path to take. So it's a little hard to recruit right now. But we're out there. So we're out there recruiting from young ages. When I see little folks, I certainly give them a positive experience for them to go on. And then we have our officers in the schools. And so they are also helping with future career development. And then we go to the colleges as well, looking for folks that are leaving that campus and might be ready for a career. And we've also hit up the military, and any career fair that we can get involved in, by all means, let us know if you host one. We'd be happy to send folks over and talk about our profession. We are proud of our work. We're honored to do this work. Honor is the expectation of police officers, certainly not the exception, and we take that to heart. One of the things that we have had a lot of community concerns about has been traffic safety and public safety as a result. Cyclists, pedestrians, vehicle safety. No one knows how to go through a roundabout, so roundabout safety. We did see during COVID that individuals started speeding up. There weren't as many people on the road, so we apparently lost all of our quality behaviors and modified ourselves into bad driving behaviors. So we have a lot of speeding, lots of traffic complaints and concerns. We have been working with our Public Works Department. The city is broken into a variety of departments. I have a very small slice of the pie when it comes to public safety. I share it with the fire partners. And then Public Works also is part of our public safety side. They also do the maintenance and things like that. So they have a technical side as well. But one of the things that Public Works has been working on is a local roadway safety plan. And so they just presented last week to council, if any of you were present or got to watch the video. It's still available on video. There's also hyperlinks on the agenda. It is a whopping 82-page report with like another 100-page of supplement. So I will not bore you with all of it because it's a lot to digest. But they did cover last week some of the highlighted areas of talking about the introduction of really what is local roadway safety. How does this work? They get into the 5 E's of traffic. We focus on the environment, the engineering and the enforcement and the education components of it. It's very important to us to get out there and make sure folks know what they're doing, just bringing it to people's attention, as well as showing them better ways to behave when on the roadway. That goes from cyclists, kids wearing their helmets, things like that are important, adults wearing helmets. But it also goes to the slowing down, making complete stops, not running red lights, things that we all learned when we were learning to drive 10 and 2, perfect, driving behaviors to get your license when we were all very nervous to do such, although some kids today aren't getting their license as quickly. But we are finding that adults are modeling the way for some of the youth. And that is certainly a theme, especially tonight in some of your prayer. It was also some of the theme, convenient timing, is really modeling the way for children. And we are asking that of drivers. So we have increased our enforcement from a law enforcement side. We've increased our enforcement almost double the enforcement we were doing during COVID. And it is illegal. We'll just say this right now. It is illegal to have a quota. You cannot tell officers they have to write X number of tickets. If I were to tell the police officers you have to write 15 tickets a month, that is completely illegal. I can, however, encourage them to get out there and enforce the laws if they see violations. So they have been encouraged, we will call it, to get out there and do that part of their job. And if they deem it necessary, they can write a citation. They have that discretion. But if they determine that just their presence and just the engagement with the community member modifies future behavior, that's what we want. We just want better drivers. We want safer drivers. We want a reduce in collisions. We want a reduction in fatal collisions, certainly. We don't want children hurt on their bicycles. We want them to have safe ways to get out there and get from school to home or out to play, whatever they're doing in the summer. We just want our folks to be safe out there. So I did write down a couple of the notable citations that we had. One of them was someone was doing 97 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. That's a lot. That's really bad. Another 2 citations were for reckless exhibition of speed. So back in the day, there might have been a few of you out there that tried to see how fast you could burn your tires and how fast you could get how long of a skid mark you could get. It was super cool when there weren't pedestrians on the roadway or as many cars on the roadway, and when you probably had a fastback or some cool muscle car. But nowadays, it's just not safe. And so we did give a couple of those citations this last month. We are also working with our council to look at potentially bringing back the red light camera program. For those who may not know what that program was, there were fixed intersections that were monitored by cameras, and people would receive a citation for running red lights without an officer pulling you over. We still had an employee reviewing every citation before it was issued, so it's not just an auto-generated thing. But it added a layer of accountability in our community. At the beginning of it, we saw an increase in citations, and then as people learned, it tapered down on the number of citations that were issued, but it improved our safety and our numbers of collisions. There were a handful of them at the time. They were in key locations that had high numbers of collisions and problems. So we are looking at reviewing that again with council to see if it's something that we should be bringing back to our community. We've seen a lot of vocal community support for traffic enforcement and finding ways to protect our communities. So that's on our traffic side. Nixle, are you guys all members of Nixle, I hope? Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. For those who aren't part of it yet, it's basically Napa County's alert and warning system. It's you can get it on your phone, you can get it in email, you can get it in a variety of ways of messaging. You can actually tailor it to your preferences. So if you only want the critical alerts, or if you want some of the warnings, or if you want the community messages, you set your own settings based on your preferences. I've set it to the higher numbers, or higher incidents, because I didn't want the community events coming off on my phone, because my phone, as you can imagine, it rings 24/7, and my spouse doesn't like that. So I try to reduce it to just the important things, but I've also added communities that surround Napa, because if there's something big going on in Sonoma or Solano County or up in Lake County, I want to know about it so that we can prepare or we can offer support to those communities. So mine is probably a little more, it dings a lot more than yours would, but you can set it to however you want. Nixle, however, the program itself, Napa County is looking at, they're doing an assessment right now to see if we stay with Nixle. The new version of Nixle is called Everbridge. They're looking to see if we transition into that and do their migration process, or if we go with a different program altogether. And right now, the Napa County Office of Emergency Services is evaluating that. So if you hear about that, we're not doing away with it yet, and we may not be doing away with it. We might keep the program and migrate into their new system, but that's being evaluated. Either way, we will find an appropriate system for our community so that if there is an emergency of any sort, you can be notified swiftly through the different services, the different companies that participate. So the Napa Fire has its own, Napa Police has its own, the City of Napa has its own, Napa County and all the different groups in Napa County have their own. And you can choose to participate in each group, whatever you want. And certainly if you need help with that, let us know and we can guide you there. So hopefully the newer system will be chosen soon. We've provided our input from the police department perspective, as well as the city level. Our press information officer, Jonah, has been in contact with OES to give them input on how the city works. I will tell you my personal preference is that whatever they do, they pick a mobile version for those of us that are pushing information out. I had the opportunity to be with my first friend in my whole life. We met at the ripe age of 4, pre-kindergarten, and he and I went to a ball game. We do an annual ball game, and it was at that time that somebody called me and said, I need a Nixle alert. I'm on my phone trying to figure it out and trying to zoom everything in, and apparently I need glasses now. And it was a complete and utter hassle. So my input was when they said, whatever you pick a mobile version that we can actually do it from our phones, because we're not always near a computer. A lot of us carry, iPads and tablets and all these different versions of technology, but I sure didn't do that. I didn't take that to Oakland. So I did, however, have my phone, and this is kind of my personal leash. So I did at least have this, but I want to make sure that it's user-friendly for the folks that are pushing information out to you, because we want it to be complete. The other thing we learned was a lot of these systems rely on Google Translate, and Google Translate works okay, but it's not perfect. And we have found from our native speakers, when we translate it into Spanish, it's not always the best translation, and it causes some chaos. And so we also take our message, send it to one of our staff members that's a native speaker, and then we make sure that the messages are accurate before we push it out. It does cause a little bit of a delay, but I'd rather have it delayed than create hysteria because we used the wrong word or it was translated incorrectly. And then I think perhaps the last part I would like to talk to you, and again, you're prayers and tonight's service was perfect because it's online, aligned with kind of what I wanted to talk about, and it's about being good humans. I'm afraid that, our communal history in Napa has been strong. Our nation's has not. And we have, pulled together, whether it's been a crisis with an earthquake or a flood or a fire or, our neighbors needing help, we certainly pull together. We know how to do that as Napa. And, during the George Floyd murder and the fallout afterwards, we had a lot of our community members reaching out to the police department. And I was grateful for that outreach because what they were basically telling us was, we do not agree with police brutality. We do not agree with police officers abusing their rights. And, we're kind of nodding like, yeah, us too, right? I would have loved to have been on that jury. I'm not allowed to be, but I would have loved to have been, because the last person that wants to see an officer abuse their rights and become evil is their fellow officers, right? We have no patience for it. And we'd love to see people fired and prosecuted because they're representing all of us, no matter where they are in the nation. We still have, 1992, we had a crisis in Southern California, and we still hear about it as police officers. And some of these officers were, sorry to tell you, born in 92, and they weren't around for it. So whenever an officer does something illegal or immoral, it affects all of us, and it affects us for generations. And it affects how others trust us, and it absolutely erodes our trust. So in Napa, we were receiving messages of, we trust you, but we're not going to support this police brutality, and we're absolutely against it. And we're like, yeah, stand in line, because we're in the same boat. But I really appreciated our community reaching out to us and saying, because of the work that community members have done, we have relationships established. And we have conduits to communication that you don't have to burn down the police department to share a message with us. You can come and just knock on our door and tell us that. And that just makes my heart happy, because that's the trust and that's the relationship that I have spent my entire adulthood working on. And I expect all of the officers, as their chief and as your chief, I expect all of our officers to act that way. Now, the best thing we do is hire humans, and the worst thing we do in law enforcement is we hire humans, right? So they will make mistakes, I will make mistakes. Whether they are intentional or not is what really is going to make the difference, right? If they are a malicious decision, we don't need them on our force. If it's a learning curve or just something that they weren't aware of or they were insensitive, okay, let's work on that, right? That's a development thing that I can take on as their supervisor and work with them for their growth. But if it's a malicious thing, then okay, let's fire them. Let's look at decertifying them. The state has changed some laws recently. SB 2 is our most recent Senate bill that is modifying how we certify police officers, and then they have a decertification process now. And that is important to me. I think a lot of officers were really offended when it first came out, but the reality is we don't want these people getting a job somewhere else. If they are fired or they resign or whatever the circumstances are, I don't want them to be a police officer somewhere else, because that's our community or that's a different community, and they don't deserve that if it's a bad person. They don't need to be having a gun and a badge and having the rights and responsibilities of a police officer. So on the sworn side, the police officer side and the dispatch side, obviously our expectation, and you should have the same expectation of us, is to be good humans. But on the community side, I don't think we're so great at holding everyone accountable to that same standard. And we are not immune as a community to the woes of the world. And we are not immune to the impacts of those. So we can absorb the fear of others just by the incidents that are happening in our neighboring communities or across the nation. When we have attacks on our Capitol, when we have attacks at our schools, in our places of worship, and in our homes, that instills fear in all of us. And so I am very appreciative of our community and how swiftly we are to react as a community and how we protect each other. We had another church that I heard today, they had a service and someone came in and was acting bizarre. And so that particular person did nothing wrong, but folks were alert enough to just kind of pay attention. And it's comforting to know that folks are alert enough to know it, but they're not so reactive that they're like, hey, you're different. You need to get out of here. And they're very angry about it or fearful about it. But it was enough for them to say, this isn't normal. Let's pay attention and be aware, but not paranoid. And I think that's our strength, right, is to support each other and be aware. And we can all be a little different, right? But when your behavior becomes a threat to others is when you should take action. And when you can call us or support each other in that. And we've done some training to do threat assessment and awareness. We will continue to do that training. If you ever need it, we'll be back. We also do site assessment so that folks can look at different ways to improve their physical structure and safety. We will offer that to anybody that wants that as well. But we shouldn't normalize, as a nation, we should not normalize the behaviors that are really threatening and causing us harm. I go back to the shooting at the Great Mall or whatever that's called, and it hit the news, and then it was gone. I mean, there weren't even headlines anymore, and it's like, these are our people that are getting hurt at the hands of others. And folks just kind of, it's normal now, and that scares me. I know we're not going to get back to a Beaver Cleaver world, right? Tony Dow just passed away, which made me think of Beaver Cleaver. We're not going to get back to that world where kids are, very innocent and young until they're in adulthood. But we are going to, if we do it right, we are going to hold folks more accountable and not tolerate such behaviors that are doing harm. And so I am grateful for each of you and the ways that you model behavior for children. As you were honoring those that you have lost, we came across a little flyer for someone's bar mitzvah. And it's like that young Eli, I think was his name, is it Eli? Eli has a whole life ahead of him. And who knows what young Eli and all of his friends can do in the course of their life. But we need to make sure that there's a path for them to take, a positive path that they can take, and they can be part of something greater than living in fear and doing harm to each other. So definitely our children are watching, and as adults, this is our time to shine. So I would like to, before I stop and answer any questions, I'd like to read you a post. I'm online way too much. It's probably just because I'm trying to make sure we hear and see things that are going on. And then there's other, that whole addiction to social media. There's that part too. But I came across, I do have a lot of things that I follow that are just goodwill stories, good feel-good stories, because I think there's enough bad in the world that I want to see the good. And so one of them that I came across was the Goodwill Librarian, and it was titled 6 Little Stories with a Lot of Meanings. The first one was, once all villagers decided to pray for rain. On the day of prayer, all the people gathered, but only one little boy came with an umbrella. That is faith. When you throw babies in the air, right? They laugh and giggle because they know you will catch them. That is trust. Every night we go to bed without any assurance of being alive the next morning, but we still set alarms to wake up. That is hope. We plan big things for tomorrow in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That is confidence. And we see the world suffering, but still get married and have children. That is love. And on an older gentleman's shirt, I'm paraphrasing, a sentence was written, I am not 80 years old, I am sweet 16 with 64 years of experience. That is attitude. Okay? So, have a happy day. Live your life like these 6 stories. And remember, good friends are rare jewels of life and difficult to find and impossible to replace. Thank you for being a friend, and thank you for allowing me here today. I appreciate it.
So I can't believe this is the first time you've ever used a head mic.
I've never used a head mic. I totally feel like Janet Jackson or something.
Beyonce. It was perfect.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't dance like Beyonce.
So I promise there will be time for some questions. And I know in this congregation, we don't just have residents of Napa. We also have people who are members of a religious minority. So as Jews, we sometimes have special concerns and particular questions. So this is a great opportunity, and the mic is open. So Robert, why don't you start?
Thank you, Chief Gonzales, for coming tonight. I just want to say again, I really appreciate your being here. Can you hear me without this?
I can.
Well,
I
there
don't
are
know if
people at
others
home,
can.
so you probably...
Yes.
Okay, never mind. So I hope this isn't the last time you'll visit, that the rabbi will invite you again.
You invite me, I will come. Yes,
Good.
I'm very grateful to be
We'll
here.
hold him to that.
Okay.
I do have a question for you. Sunday, as Roberta, my wife, the president, said, we are doing a big event at CIA Copia. It's called L'Chaim.
Yes.
And given that this is right on the horizon, I think all of us have a little bit of a concern given what happened in Pittsburgh, what happened in Texas. Anytime you get a big group of people together, there is this lingering worry, what will happen? And so my question for you, is there anything that you and your team will be doing to make all of us feel just a little safer on Sunday?
That event has been on my calendar for months now. Rabbi Goldstein has told me about it. It has been on our calendar. I will not be in attendance, but we are well aware of it. We have told our officers of it as well. We've talked about security needs in the venue itself and the plans that you folks have already made, your planning team has already made, but we are absolutely aware of it. You might see our vehicles drive by, our police cars. In fact, after that incident with the flyers, we had one officer who said, you know, I need to write reports anyways, and I'll be in my car. So he was parking in your parking lot for a little while. I hope that didn't offend anyone. But he's like, I have to park somewhere to write my report anyways. I might as well park there. And so they are well aware to be present, be active, and be aware. Yeah.
Other questions? Ellen, I might have a hard time getting back to you, but hold on. Wait, let me give this to you.
So she's saying there's 6 armed guards that will be at that event, is what I just
I just
heard.
want everybody to feel safe. We've been very careful. We have 6 armed guards in addition to the police force, in addition to a patrol car. And the armed guards have already done a complete tour of the grounds and are well aware of every egress on the location at the CIA. So we're doing everything we possibly can to make it a very safe event.
The other nice thing is the actual venue itself. We're well aware of it. We're familiar with the location. So that's also handy. It's different if it's a location that we're not as familiar with that has lots of hallways and different things like that. That particular venue is very easy for us from a sense of a response. If you ever needed help, that's both for paramedic, fire, and law enforcement sense.
Any other questions?
Oh, you're letting me get off easy here.
Well, I'm going to ask one. I'm just going to ask one.
Okay.
You know, as you said, there are bad guys out there. They're evil, sick people. And you can't always prevent mass shooting incidents and things like that. What can a municipal police department do in order to try to identify and prevent these lone wolves from doing these kinds of horrible events that happen, or is that just not possible in this day and age?
It depends, I would surmise, on the community. This is where we're very lucky. We have a community that's engaged. We have officers who know the members of our community. We are restricted by laws, right? There are rights of individuals to exercise their belief, to research things online, things like that. It is not illegal to look things up. And so it doesn't generate, we aren't some secret society that, you know, Big Brother is watching everything that you Google. So we don't have that type of capacity, nor do we all want it. But we do have police officers in the schools. They get a lot of intel from the kids because they've built those relationships. Many moons ago, I was a school resource officer. I will tell you that was probably one of the best assignments I've had in my career because I was able to work. At the time, I had a gang caseload, so it was all the kids that were on probation gang cases, and I had junior high kids. Very impressionable. Sometimes they would act up just to see if I noticed it because they wanted an adult in their life to see that they were doing something different than their normal behavior. So sometimes it's kids acting out just to see if someone's watching, and that's very different than somebody that has a malicious intent that they're building a path and a plan. And so when we look at the school resource officers and the value of having those relationships. A lot of times the officers don't want to, or the students don't want to tell on their friends, or they don't want to be known that they're telling on their friends, but they heard something, they saw something, they learned something, and they will sneak over to the officer and say, hey, so-and-so was blah, blah, blah. And they will tell the officer that the person was doing something, or they sent a text message, or they oversaw or overheard a conversation. And so they will report it privately to the officer because they've established that trust. So this is where the Napa-esque approach to law enforcement is so vital to us, because we have officers in the junior highs, we have officers in the high schools when kids are impressionable, but they're also very aware of what the other ones are doing. And it's beyond senior cut day of my day, right? I mean, we just went to the beach. We were nothing special. But now kids are keeping secrets for, others that are preparing to do harm. And so having those relationships, I think, are vital. Our officers are also, a lot of our officers are engaged in youth sports. And again, there's two parts to that. Youth sports, you build a relationship with the kids, they trust you, they tell you a story. And they tell you they're being abused, or they tell you they need help in one way or another, or their friend needs help. The other thing that youth sports does is it's, while they're impressionable, you get them on the right track, and you model behavior that you want to see that for them, and you open doors for them that they may not have access to in other ways. So they have a trusted adult, and so it's very important for us to have our officers and dispatchers and staff members engaged in youth events and lives of youth, even if they don't have children. Some of them are coaches and things like that. That's super important for us. The other thing we have is Tip 411, which is an anonymous electronic program where any of you can send a message to the police department, and you can say, in fact, usually it's little kids that are sending messages that I heard my friend said, and a lot of times it's self-harm. My friend said they were going to hurt themselves, or they were going to kill themselves, or they were going to, jump in front of the train or whatever. And so we can figure out what school they go to and get either the resource officers or the school staff involved in that kid's life. So it's, I would say there's adults out there, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of adults doing harm, and certainly with the shootings, but a lot of that starts at a younger age that we didn't prevent as a society.
Thank you. And in some ways, it might be a little easier in a smaller community like Napa than a bigger place like LA or New York or Chicago.
Exactly.
Where it's not that easy to pick up aberrant behavior.
Correct.
So,
and some of it's normalized again, right?
Yeah,
that's not normal for Napa, so when it stands out, it really stands out.
right.
So, but again, Napa sells, right? We're very newsworthy, and so things that happen here sometimes is for attention, But then what also sells in Napa is really our strengths, and so I would much rather put out on our social media all the amazing things that are happening in our town and our community and with our community members, and that's the news we need to make newsworthy. Is come to Napa, come visit us, and let us share our community with you.
Great. Thank you. Any final? Rachel, we'll give you the last word. See, you didn't get off that easy.
It's okay.
Rachel's a tough one.
Okay.
No, she's not tough. She's nice.
I'm
She's
really
nice.
tough.
She's one of the good humans.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering about the drug problem in Napa.
Yes. Question was related to drug problem in Napa.
Problems
Yes.
in Napa.
I would say any drug use is a problem. Again, it's getting back to what we're normalizing. We have decriminalized drugs because we know that the criminal penalization of drugs wasn't working. We didn't necessarily enhance resources, and so we're seeing folks having a lot of access to drugs. One of the drugs that we're seeing a problem with, there's conversations about marijuana and gateway drugs and what your belief is. But when we see the normalization of methamphetamine and the infusion of fentanyl and other things like that that are actually killing our family members, heroin overdoses, things like that, we are seeing. And the officers, I'm not wearing the right uniform, but when I'm in my other uniform, we carry Narcan, which is a nasal spray that helps reverse the effects of heroin. We are carrying that because we're seeing it enough on the streets that we carry it for two reasons. One is so we can help community members that are overdosing, but also because our officers are getting exposed to the drugs. Some of it airborne, some of it they touch and it gets embedded into their skin. And they themselves, because of that exposure, are going down. And so, fortunately, in Napa, our Napa police officers, we have had several life-saving events where we've used Narcan to help save other people. We have not had to use it on our own staff, but there are other police departments that they've had to use it on their officers because of exposure. So it is a problem. We have worked very closely. In fact, we have a detective assigned to the Napa Special Investigations Bureau, NSIB. They used to be the NARCs, the drug officers. Now they do a lot of other tasks, human trafficking and things like that. But one thing that they are focused on is fentanyl on the road, on the streets, and trying to stop the sources from coming to Napa. The good news for us is there are limited ways in and out of Napa, so if we find somebody that's hard for them to get away from us, especially
Get
when
them
they
in
don't know where they're
American
going.
Canyon, right?
American
Just like-
Canyon
yeah.
just kind of sits there and waits for us. So the same with the shoplifters, they take off with stuff and then American Canyon helps us out. So, but yeah, so it is a problem, it is a concern. Our hospital staff is well aware of it and they are on the lookout as well for it, for a response, and the schools as well, so. All right.
Chief, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Certainly, and thanks for letting me keep you for so long. I
Yeah,
don't
we are
have a
so grateful to
over
you.
there.
Why don't you go on back?
Okay.
And everyone else, please rise. And we are going to say Kiddush and Motzi. Jennifer, at the end of a Shabbat service, we have food and wine. We're going to say a couple blessings before them. You're welcome to stay for any of it or take off if you have to take off. But for those of you who know the Kiddush, Gordon, would you lead us in it? You can use that mic. Yeah.
Is it on? Is it on?
It's on, yes.
Testing. Sorry. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
L'chaim. And in anticipation of the oneg, the food waiting for us, please join us in the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.